This video has been funded in part by the Guild via Patreon. Check out the links in the description or at the end of this video for more details.
Hello everyone, my name is Gildart and welcome to a bit of a different video. I've always loved making these discussion style videos where I just put out an opinion or talk about something that most people just don't talk about. And today I want to tell you all why I choose to play my Warriors games on Xbox consoles over any other option. To some this may seem a little odd. Koei Tecmo has for the most part been a huge supporter of Sony. The majority of Warriors games are on their consoles, and in fact some are exclusive to the Sony consoles. So why would I choose to play my Warriors games on Xbox like some wild Neanderthal? Everyone knows that Xbox is the worst console, right? That's why you heard so much about the PS5 being sold out everywhere, not the Xbox Series X. But Xbox experienced the exact same thing. I will admit though, the PlayStation and Nintendo consoles are definitely more popular. But there's one thing that Xbox has over the others. It's just better to play on. And that's the video. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash that like button and join the Patreon. Now obviously this is my opinion, and I'm not just gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna go over a few reasons why I prefer Xbox and why specifically I record the majority of my Warriors gameplay from the Xbox line of consoles. Growing up, I had Nintendo handhelds and PlayStation home consoles. I did own an original Xbox when it first came out, and maybe a year or two after that, I got my PS2. Since most of my friends at the time had PS2s as well, that's what I played more of. We never played online, but we would bring our memory cards and games over to hangouts and sleepovers all the time to show off where we were in a game, or play some multiplayer games where someone had some certain characters unlocked. All I really played on the original Xbox was Fusion Frenzy, Jet Set Radio Future, Bloody Roar Extreme, and Fable. Yeah, I didn't own any Dynasty Warriors games on Xbox back in the day. I also never played or owned a Halo game until I was in high school, and I bought it for my 360 at the time. But when I first got my PS2, I mostly got into other games before I finally found Dynasty Warriors. I played the Spyro and Crash games of the time. Dark Cloud was probably one of my favorite games when I first got my PS2, and I remember playing a lot of fighting games like Soul Calibur 2 and the Dragon Ball Z Budokai games. But there was one fateful day that I was at my local pawn shop and found Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends. A friend's father was the manager, so he would often let me straight up swap 1-for-1 games. I would find myself taking all the games that I was done playing down to the shop and switching them out for games that I wanted to try. I brought Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends home, got my ass handed to me by Lubu several times playing on normal difficulty, and that made me not like it. It wasn't until I played it with a friend in co-op, dropped the difficulty to easy, and we had loads of fun. But here's the thing, when I tell you to look back on a Warriors game of the 6th generation, it might look like what you're seeing right now. But let me tell you, this is not actually Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends. This is Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends playing on the PS2. What you were seeing before was the vanilla Dynasty Warriors 3 playing on Xbox, outputting progressively at 480p, then being upscaled to 1080p using this, the M Classic. So from here on out, keep an eye on the bottom left of the screen where I will be saying what game the footage is from, what console it's playing on, what resolution it's outputting, and whether or not it's being upscaled by the M Classic, or I'm forcing a resolution on my PS2 using something called Free McBoot. The main thing is that the PS2 was made to output the best of the best interlaced gameplay. If you're playing on a CRT, then you'd be a fool to choose anything other than the PS2. It looks so crisp outputting interlaced even over composite video. For those of you that don't know, composite is the cable where video goes over the yellow output, while component is where the video is shared between green, blue, and red cables. But I'm not playing on a CRT, and I have doubts that you're watching this video on a CRT. If you're outputting interlaced displays, your HD monitor or TV might have an internal deinterlacer or upscaler to make the 480i footage look as close to 720p, 1080p, or 4K, whichever your TV is able to put out. That way it looks a little less offensive to the eyes. But when I record gameplay, it records at the native resolution. So for PS2 games, it would be 480i, but the video I render is always going to be 1080p for YouTube. So your TV and monitor won't recognize that the clip that I recorded was in 480i, and it will look like utter shit. Once I realized this, I went out of my way to get my hands on component cables for all of my consoles. I have it for my PS2, Xbox, and Wii. I don't have a GameCube component cable because it's so expensive I would have to sell my kidney in order to make up half of the cost. But at least the Wii is backwards compatible, and again, I can upscale that shit to 1080p with my M Classic. The only thing that I won't be able to play are the Game Boy line of games with the Game Boy player. So I'm still on the lookout for a decently priced GameCube component cable. This all started when I was doing my no map challenge on the original Samurai Warriors. I had already been playing the PS2 version to gather footage for another video. I was also just trying to get my save files back to where they were, because when I was young, I sold my PS2 and memory card to fund my newer game purchases. So when I went to record that Let's Play, I decided to play on Xbox. But I only had the composite cables and the footage looked like garbage. I went to a local game store, shout out to Gino Games, who had the component hookup for the Xbox. Once I got that and started outputting 480p with all of my classic Warriors games, I never looked back. Then when I heard about the M Classic and how it's a decent upscaler at an affordable price, that only solidified my want to play all of the classics on the original Xbox. Speaking of which, I've been wanting to do a video on the M Classic and talk about my thoughts on it. For those of you that don't know, the M Classic is an upscaler that costs about $100 and upscales your video footage to 1080p or higher if your TV is able to take that. The M Classic has 3 settings: a pass-through where the native resolution goes straight to your TV, a widescreen upscale represented by a green light on the switch where it takes the gameplay footage and outputs it as 16:9. Then there's a third option where the switch glows blue. This is a 4:3 upscaled resolution. The third setting is great for someone like me, so I don't have to adjust the aspect ratio in post. Something that is possible, but is fairly annoying with Filmora. And as you can tell, it looks great. This almost makes me want to revisit all the old Dynasty Warriors games and re-review them. I've been playing a lot of Dynasty Warriors 4 since getting the M Classic because that's my favorite. But there's one drawback to the M Classic, and that's that it only upscales already progressive video. It is not a deinterlacer. So for the PS2, where 99% of the games only output at 480i, that's all you're going to get. No matter the setting on your M Classic, interlaced video just passes through. That being said, for the majority of consoles you may want this on, it looks great. Xbox and Wii games look super crisp. I find the lower the native resolution, the better the end result, which makes sense. There's more the M Classic can work with when upscaling a 480p video to 1080p than it would working with native 720p. That being said, you will still see a difference in the look of those games. Playing Vita games on the PlayStation TV looks great, making me want to play more of those games like Samurai Warriors Chronicles 3. The main consoles you'll see a difference on are the ones that are capped at 480p, but remember, it has to be progressive. Now, there is one thing you can do to make this better for your PS2 without breaking the bank on a deinterlacer. You can force a progressive display. I do this through FreeMcBoot, a fan-made exploit that you can install on a memory card that will allow you to do a variety of things with your PS2, including playing games off external memory. I don't use that because I own the majority of the games I want to play. The only benefit this would have is getting around region locking. But I'd rather play the physical game off of the genuine hardware, personally. Forcing a resolution has the opportunity to let me enjoy some of my favorite games in a way that I remember it looking. Here's the main issue with using FreeMcBoot. It doesn't really work the greatest with Warriors games. The other thing is, I highly recommend that you get an upscaler if you're using FreeMcBoot, because the forced 480p gameplay from the PS2 just doesn't look that good by itself. Using FreeMcBoot, you can also force 1080i on any Warriors game, no problem. I personally didn't notice too much of a difference between this and 480i on my TV. This also forces a widescreen aspect ratio. Again, there are ways that I can change this in post when I'm making a video, but it's quite annoying to do so in the program that I use. I also only recorded one clip using 1080i because it takes so long to render from the Elgato. As far as forcing 480p, this works alright with every game from Dynasty Warriors 4 onward. The only thing that I'll mention is that you'll want to use a widescreen setting on your M Classic if you're playing anything beyond Dynasty Warriors 5. When upscaling, for some reason the width shrinks down and the widescreen just makes it look normal. This is still not nearly as nice as playing it on the Xbox over component then upscaled with the M Classic, but it's the best way I have to get 1080p from my PS2. As well with games like Dynasty Warriors 5 Empires, Samurai Warriors 2, 2 Extreme Legends, and 2 Empires, Warriors Odyssey, and Warriors Odyssey 2, I can just play the 360 versions of those games, and not only will I get native 1080p from them, but I'll also get a widescreen display, which is another thing I tend to want from my games, especially while recording. If I'm gonna be honest though, I would say only get Free McBoot if you're having issues with the interlace display. Like I said earlier, most TVs will do their best to upscale and de-interlace. So when you're using the M Classic to upscale to forced progressive resolution, you may not see much of a difference from what your TV will do by itself. But I definitely recommend you look into buying yourself an M Classic, especially if you play on a console that doesn't naturally output 1080p and has a progressive display. The difference you'll see will be well worth the price. Thanks to the M Classic, I was able to jump into some games that I wouldn't have before. The notable one being Samurai Warriors 3 on the Wii. Naturally, it outputs at 480p, but the M Classic can get it up to 1080p, and it looks beautiful in comparison. Another game that I'd play more now because of the M Classic is Dynasty Warriors 5. You don't really see it when you play it on the PS2, but the 480p gameplay on Xbox looks worse than Dynasty Warriors 4. It almost looks like they just made the interlace display look slightly more clear. Natively, you're gonna see a lot of jaggies. This is where you can see the space between two diagonal pixels that are so sharp they separate and open a void to the darkest timeline. But upscaled to 1080p with the M Classic, it finally looks like what I want from it. Even though the PS2 has the Extreme Legends content, playing it on Xbox with the component cables upscaled to 1080p is the closest thing we can get to an HD remaster. But wait, there's more! It's not just the 6th generation of consoles that I play more on Xbox. This extends to the PS3 and 360. After the PS2, my next console would be one of these two. My dad was the one that helped me research which one would be the best, and we decided on the 360. He also played games every now and then, so we tried to pick the best for both of us. But this wasn't a bad decision to become an early adopter of the 360 as a Warriors fan. I was able to play the HD versions I mentioned earlier when the PS3 players got none of that. It was great to play these games in high definition. At the time, my TV was only capable of giving me 480p at best and wasn't even widescreen. But when I first got a TV that could take video over HDMI and output at 1080p, I couldn't stop playing Samurai Warriors 2 and Warriors Odyssey 2. I never could go back to playing these games on PS2. Even to this day, I won't go back to playing these games unless I'm getting footage for a video. I know the 360 can have its instances of slowdown and you're capped at 30 FPS, but the overall look of the games is too good to pass up. It wasn't until I was in college and the PS4 was on the horizon that I finally picked up a PS3. When I got it, the first Warriors games I got were Dynasty Warriors 7 Extreme Legends and Warriors Legends of Troy, both of which were PS3 exclusives in North America. I never noticed it until last year, but literally every single PS3 Warriors game does not output at 1080p, even though the PS3 is able to. They all output at 720p. I honestly don't know why this is the case. I also checked a bunch of other PS3 games, and other than some of the biggest AAA titles, they all are capped at 720p. That being said, most of the 360 ports of these games are the full 1080p. I imagine if these games were backwards compatible on Xbox One, they look even better, especially when you think about what it would look like on an Xbox One X. And this brings me to the most current console generation that I own. Between the Xbox One and the PS4, I still choose to play on Xbox One because I have a One X and only a base PS4. I know that's not as big of a reason as the last two generations, but it still continues the trend of playing my Warriors games on Xbox over PlayStation. Maybe if I get a PS4 Pro or a PlayStation 5, I'll play my Warriors games on that. But I imagine once I get an Xbox Series X, I'll choose that over a PS5 too. The last reason I choose to play on Xbox is something I made a video on long ago shaming Nintendo for not doing, and that's achievements. I know PlayStation has trophies, but having an overall score just feels better than having to count how many platinum trophies you have. I find with PlayStation games, I don't care if the trophy is bronze, silver, or gold. The only one that matters is the platinum. So when a game doesn't even have a platinum, it feels like the 100% trophies on it just means nothing. But on Xbox, each achievement gives you a varying score, and it all totals up. It's much easier to be proud of and compare yourself to your friends. That being said, of course I'll still go for both achievements and trophies. And maybe once I get my PC upgraded, I'll start going for the achievements on Steam as well for all of the Warriors games. I know this isn't one of my usual videos, but I wanted to get this off my chest because sometimes I feel like I have to explain myself when people find out that I play on Xbox over PlayStation. I've had a lot of people ask me why. I know visuals aren't everything, and that's why I do end up playing both. But as a content creator and a visual snob, I will always choose the version that looks better when I can. Someday I'll get a good deinterlacer and upscaler like the FrameMeister that will make my PS2 gameplay look so much better. And when I do, I'll start posting videos on what the classic Warriors games look like when processed that way. But at least right now you can see what some of these games look like being played on the original Xbox, outputting 480p over component cables converted to HDMI so it can be upscaled to 1080p using the M Classic. God, I need to get a life. Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe for more. What's your console of choice when you're playing Warriors games? Or are you a PC player? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can join the Guild, like these awesome people that you're seeing on screen right now. You can join them at the end of every single video for just $1 a month. There's other rewards and other tiers as well, so check out the links that you see on screen, and I will see you all down in the comments.